Tantu, welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. Manitoba's advocate for children and youth is ringing the alarm over child sexual exploitation in the province. And the organization is asking the Manitoba government to take action now. A warning, some viewers may find the following content disturbing. Veronica Blackhawk reports.
Well, I did release a statement a few years back, a couple years ago, I think it was, and we haven't seen any changes or movement in this area.
Sherry Gott was prompted to release a new statement on Wednesday based on updated information sourced by Macy.
We've had over 400 referrals of children that are being seriously injured, and 41% of those are sexual assault, which includes sexual exploitation. The number of children that come to our attention, either through our advocacy program, our child death review program, our serious injury review, most are Indigenous.
In the recent statement, Sherry Gott references a strategy called Tracy's Trust that was developed in 2002 to support youth experiencing sexual exploitation in the province. According to Gott, the initiative hasn't been receiving enough attention. APTN spoke with Minister Nahanni Fontaine for comment.
So we're going across the province to reach out to community stakeholders and community and those that are on the front lines to look at what we need to do with Tracy's Trust to reflect where we are right now. So my government, my department, we're responding with engagement with those that are on the front lines and those that are best positioned to give us the advice of where we need to go in Manitoba on child sexual exploitation.
Fontaine shares that she was involved in a previous review, and based on their findings, a handful of initiatives were developed, including HOME, or Hands of Mother Earth, a specialized group home for girls who have experienced sexual exploitation.
But if you look across the country, everybody has seen a rise on the sexual exploitation of children. And our government is responding, again, almost immediately since we assumed government, with real investments.
Minister Nahanni Fontaine believes the 7-year gap was due to a lack of action on behalf of the previous government. Fontaine acknowledges the current outreach that has been in effect since her time in the office. While these updates take a large amount of time and resources to develop, Fontaine states there are resources and supports available for those currently affected by child sexual exploitation throughout the city, with additional programming being developed throughout the province. I'm Veronica Blackhawk with APTN National News.
And if you or someone you know is affected by child sexual exploitation and needs an advocate, you can contact the Manitoba Advocacy Group for Children and Youth. That toll-free number in Manitoba is 1-800-263-7146. An Anishinaabe woman who was involved in a serious hit-and-run incident in Winnipeg is speaking out this week, hoping that her story will lead to justice and finding the people responsible. On Saturday, March 15th at around 12:30 a.m., Margaret Kobenis says she was walking near Mulvey Avenue and Osborne Street in Winnipeg. As she was getting closer to the Osborne Street underpass, Kobenis says a white van pulled up as she was crossing the road. She says she made eye contact with the driver and thought it was safe to keep crossing. But the driver didn't stop. He hit her and ran her over. Kobenis says the driver then sped off. A passerby called 911 and she was rushed to the Health Sciences Center. Her family held an awareness gathering the next day. The hit and run left Kobenis with multiple bone fractures, including her shoulder, collarbone, ribs, and pelvis. Winnipeg police are now looking for a large white cargo-style van last seen heading north on Osborne Street that night. They are asking the driver to turn himself in. The family believes the hit and run was intentional.
Before I was crossing, I was making sure it was okay to cross, and that white van let me cross. When I got to the passenger side, just before that, we looked at each other, and I didn't even make it to the other end. He just pressed on the gas, and I hit the ground. I tried getting up, and he continued to run over me.
And we will have more on this story in our evening newscast. Meanwhile, the Manitoba government unveiled its 2025 budget on Thursday. Key points include a $794 million deficit, a new gold mine in northern Manitoba, and fiscal support for Manitoba businesses in the face of President Trump's tariffs. APTN Sarah Bettens was at the Manitoba Legislative Building when the budget was being unveiled and brings you more details on what it means for Indigenous peoples.
In last year's budget speech, Manitoba Finance Minister Adrian Sala affirmed the Manitoba NDP government's commitment to searching the landfill for the remains of Indigenous women. And this year, in his budget speech, he acknowledged that the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron have been found. Today, here at the Manitoba Legislature, the province unveiled Manitoba's 2025 budget. But what does this budget mean for Indigenous peoples in Manitoba? Well, let's start with some economic commitments. So one of the major announcements was that there's going to be a new gold mine in Lynn Lake, Manitoba. And the province says they're hoping to do this in partnership with First Nations. And while those details haven't been revealed, the province said that this announcement will be coming in the coming weeks. There's also 3 Indigenous economic partnerships, which includes the Indigenous Economic Development Program, the Indigenous Economic Reconciliation Strategy, and the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program. The province is also moving forward with the controversial Lake Manitoba Lake St. Martin Outlet Channels project and continuing to expand Northern Rail and the Port of Churchill. Moving on to healthcare, the province plans to bring midwifery into Northern First Nations, bring dialysis into the Norway House Cree Nation, and work with the SCO on creating a downtown health center. There's also plans for a mobile MRI, which will be moving across northern communities. And the province also plans to invest $1.3 million in creating the first Indigenous-led supervised consumption site in Canada. And on the education front, there's lots of plans to invest in Indigenous language classes, land-based curriculum, treaty education, and hosting elders and knowledge keepers in schools. There was also an entire section dedicated to poverty reduction, and that includes a $73.4 million investment into the province's homelessness strategy. And they're also continuing the Minaweg Ikwayag strategy to help empower and protect Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirits. Now, while they're continuing that program, there was no new investment in this year's budgets. Finally, the province is launching new legislation called Giwe, which means Here She Comes Home in Anishinaabe woman. This legislation will ensure that Indigenous nations can protect, access, and repatriate their ancestral human remains and sacred entities. We're told that more information on this new legislation will be coming out soon. We'll be covering these commitments as they come out, and we'll have more on our newscast in the coming weeks. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
The city of Winnipeg has announced its new chief of police. Jean Bowers was sworn in earlier this week following previous chief Danny Smythe's retirement last September after 8 years in the position. APTN's Sav Jonza has the info on Bowers' leadership plans.
Jean Bowers has been a member of the Winnipeg Police Services since 1989. He is now the 19th Chief of Police, the highest rank for the force. When talking to reporters at his swearing-in ceremony on Monday, he shared that reconciliation is top of mind. He plans to create an action circle where Indigenous community members will be consulted on issues and advised on improving police training.
So it would be an Indigenous action circle that would sit with the chief. We would meet and discuss issues that they would like to see addressed. It also will help us with training. We do a lot of Indigenous training, but we can always improve what we're doing. So the Indigenous community will have a voice in, what does that training look like?
In regards to the 2022 serial murders, Bowers would not say if he had a hand in the service's infamous refusal to search the Prairie Green landfill for the remains of 2 slain First Nations women. He asserts he will address the public after talking with the affected families. Bowers says WPS has never stopped trying to identify a 3rd victim, who the Indigenous community calls Mushkade Bijaki Ikwe, or Buffalo Woman.
We've been working hard to identify Buffalo Woman. We continued to try for everybody, and we won't stop until we identify her.
He said changes are afoot in police responses to citizens in a mental health crisis, which have sometimes resulted in civilian deaths in the past.
Right now we have our ARC, so we're with a clinician and a police officer. Really, I think and we'll continue to do that, but there are other community health that can get involved, and they're the experts in this field to dealing with people in mental health crisis, and if at all possible should be the ones at the front of it.
Bowers promises there will be realignment within the force to better tackle violent crime and get back into the community. Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Thank you, Sav. More Indigenous leaders in the community have been recognized for their work, including a longtime Indigenous actor. Those stories when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In 2015, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its final report. It went on to make 94 calls to action to address reconciliation in Canada. Now, the University of Saskatchewan recently held its first ever Indigenous Achievement Week. The university says it's important to be a participant in reconciliation and not just a spectator. CTV's Mick Favel has more.
Johnny Cross is an education student from Poundmaker Cree Nation at the University of Saskatchewan. He's one of 49 students being recognized at this year's Indigenous Student Achievement Awards.
I decided to become a part of a lot of things on campus when it comes to leadership because honestly the opportunities there are just endless, and they just keep coming and coming, and honestly, I want to make a foundation for future students to come in, and then they can take these opportunities, and then they can build upon the foundation that's built already.
Students here not only recognized for their success in the classroom, but their contributions to their communities and the resiliency they have displayed during their academic journey.
Acknowledgement is a powerful thing. When we acknowledge our Indigenous students' achievements, we empower them to keep doing the hard work, keep doing the amazing work that they're doing through all of the various ways in which they become leaders.
Bianca Martel-Allery is a science student from Waterhen Lake First Nation. Her advice to other students: make use of the supports available.
Yeah, one day at a time, take care of yourself, reach out. There's resources on campus and surrounding resources as well. And the people around me are really supportive, like the Gordon Oaks helped, the Student Wellness Center helped, Protective Services help. There's always help somewhere.
Each award, a celebration not only for the recipients, but for those who have watched and helped them in their educational pursuits.
It's so important for Indigenous students to be given these awards. They've earned them. They're amazing human beings, and they've done so much on campus. And for the support of all their families and friends, their faculty, staff, all of them supporting them in their successes.
This year's award winners span across the university's colleges and faculties, with more than 2,000 Indigenous students currently studying at the university.
And that was CTV's Mick Favel with that report. Women in Entertainment Canada will honor Cree and Métis actress Tantu Cardinal from Anzac, Alberta. She will receive the Equity in Entertainment Award at the 2025 ceremony. The award recognizes women in the Canadian entertainment industry who amplify the voices of underrepresented communities. Cardinal, a member of the Order of Canada since 2009, is known for her work in advancing Indigenous performing arts in Canada. With a 50-year career, Cardinal has held roles in movies like Dances with Wolves and TV shows such as Blackstone, Moccasin Flats, and North of 60. She will receive the award at the second annual Hollywood Reporter Women in Entertainment Awards on May 29th later this year at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Toronto. The issue of Pretendianism has been described as harmful within Indigenous communities. This discussion regained national attention in 2023 when it was unveiled that musician Buffy St. Marie's claims of Cree heritage were questionable. As APTN Savannah Craig reports, Montreal-based Ojibwe artist Wayne Robinson is taking a humorous approach to discussing Pretendianism and Indigenous identity.
Bum-ba-da-dum. Your boy's DNA test just came in.
This Ojibwe artist is making light of his DNA results through what he calls a racial reveal party.
I did a live reaction to me getting the results.
It's more than just an unveiling of his ancestry, but a chance to have conversations that may be uncomfortable for some.
Can I be a pretend settler, right? And get rid of all that kind of trauma.
For Wayne Robinson, this is a way to discuss Indigenous identity, trauma, and Pretendianism.
I'm 3% Irish. Does that not make me more Irish than the Irish, right?
He says discussing Pretendianism is not always easy to engage with non-Indigenous people, citing the example of musician Buffy St. Marie, whose decades-long claim of Cree heritage came under question recently.
Talking about the harms that have been done by Pretendianism are something we all grapple with, we all can really understand. But I think from outside of the community, it seems almost negative, right? It seems like we're attacking a little old lady who ascribed to do the best thing for Indigenous folks, and I think there are real harms there.
He says making a joke out of it is easier for everyone to engage in these important discussions.
Even with myself, right? Like I've always had a troubling relationship with my own identity. You know, I grew up in the inner city. I grew up really poor. I grew up not surrounded by a lot of other Indigenous people that weren't part of my immediate family. So my Indigenous identity for a lot of my life has not been as positive as I'd like it to be. And a lot of times it was always deflected by humor.
Robinson has been trying to have these conversations for a while, even with the Montreal police force. through hosting workshops on generational trauma and myths of Indigenous people.
Let's try to humanize ourselves and the community as much as possible.
Robinson recently launched a podcast called Unceded Identity.
The racial constructs and challenges were kind of dwarfed by the economic challenges. Right?
That will soon be released on all podcast streaming platforms.
Where the idea of the unseen is like, no, we have control of that. We have control of what our identities are. We have control of those stereotypes, those myths, and take your own story, but tell it in a different way to either ascribe to more positive aspects or move away from the negative ones.
So what was his biggest surprise from his DNA results?
To find out I was 25% British was kind of a surprise. I don't know what I was expecting, but I think of the colonizer nations, British was not one of them.
Savannah Craig, APTN National News, Montreal.
We now want to recap this week's web poll questions. Over on our website, we ask, with promises to eliminate federal carbon pricing, should it be replaced? Your answers are yes, no, or unsure. Our second web question, we ask, what should be the top priority for the federal government? You can choose the economy, the climate crisis, health, treaty rights, or other. And our third web question, we ask, former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is calling for RCMP reforms. Do you think the Mounties can change? Your answers are yes, no, or unsure. Go to our website at aptnnews.ca/polls to cast your ballot. The city of Edmonton recently recognized two spirited people at a special ceremony. That story when we come back. Starting on the east, Charlottetown 7, Halifax Sun in 5. Anujiwak -18, La Grande River -5. Saint Jovite 0, Quebec City 3. Sarnia -2, Windsor -2. Big Trout Lake -22, Thunder Bay 5. The Paw -21, God's Lake -22 and sun. Sunny in Princess Harbor at -20, Dauphin -17. Regina -8, Yorkton -18. Meadow Lake -11, LaRange -22. Grand Prairie 7, Peace River 5. Lethbridge 12, Medicine Hat 12. Kamloops 11, Bella Coola 8. 7 in Smithers, Dees Lake 3. 0 in Mayo, Rock River -15. -4 in Wrigley, Watee -7. Fort McPherson -15, Pawlatuck -18. Arvie at -22, Chesterfield -26. And Iqaluit -19, Arctic Bay -20. The city of Edmonton raised a flag at the city on Friday to recognize Two-Spirit and Indigenous LGBTQIA+ Awareness Day. The Two-Spirit flag showcases a rainbow with 2 eagle feathers to symbolize the balance of masculine and feminine spirits. The celebration at City Hall featured drumming and cultural performances. Organizers say the day is meant to honor and acknowledge Two-Spirit people within the community. They say the recognition is a reminder of Indigenous representation in Canada.
And so today is a practice of remembering who we are, being who we are, and understanding that it's beautiful to be queer, it's beautiful to be yourself, and it's beautiful in a country like Canada that protects those rights.
This is the 4th year the city has celebrated this day. A Nova Scotia clothing brand built on strength and resilience is expanding its message. Mi'kma'ki Strong is an apparel line designed to create more awareness and share a message where peace and friendship are honored by the 1752 Treaty. CTV's Leah Kaiser has that story.
So I'm Jonathan Beadle, owner of Mi'kma'ki, co-owner of Mi'kma'ki Strong with Amanda, my wife. I'm from Pictou Land and First Nation.
We have an apparel company. Since 2020, we've done pop-up locations throughout Atlantic Canada at Maui Omi's, ball tournaments, cultural events, tourism events, and we're promoting where and what Mi'kma'ki is to the general public as well as the Mi'kmaq population.
Mi'kma'ki is the traditional word for the Maritime Provinces, the territory of the Maritime Provinces in which the Mi'kmaq occupied.
It's the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people.
Everything today seems to be about identity, and so we wanted to make certain that Mi'kma'ki remains identified in that manner. It's gotten quite trendy. It's popular amongst especially the youth now, which is really nice to see because I think that it's important the youth identify what this is, and in it not so much it being a movement, but I think, like I say, given the identity where it's needed and where it's deserved.
So we launched Mi'kma'ki Strong in September of 2020, and since then we have decided to expand the line and include Canada Strong into the mix now. With everything that's going on in Canada, it seemed fitting to, I guess, promote a little bit of unity across Canada.
And I think that the intent has been the whole while to make certain on my end that we create an awareness that is culturally not dividing, but more one that creates an awareness that allows us to unite. And I think more than ever, I'll repeat myself, more than ever, I think we now need to do that. We don't want Canadians to feel like, we have to give up or we have to give in or anything else like that. We want Canadians to believe in how strong we actually are. And, I think when you wear it on your chest, it means something different. So I'm quite eager to, get this out there and get the message out there that Canada remains what it is, and that's Canada.
And that's your daytime newscast for this Friday, March 21st. Dennis Ward is back for your evening newscast. Make sure to join us then in a few hours. From everyone at APTN National News Daytime, hi miigwech masicho kwana. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next week. Ekse.